Some cities have a mark of randomness, and they seem to have grown out of man's will. Others instead bear traces of an ordering mind that has planned the growth of that city in a clear-headed way. Teggiano, once called Diano, an ancient city in southern Italy, does not belong to any of these categories. If you view it from afar, as well as you walk along its streets, discovering the beauty of its monuments, you can realize that the city is a unique body, so harmonious and alive, bearing a very special mark, the mark of the dream. Who dreamt of Teggiano? Who wanted it so? Who was able to imagine its growth with an almost fatherly love? Already a flourishing city in Roman times, in the Middle Ages, the liege lords of the ancient Diano were members of the San Severino family, one of the most powerful families in the Kingdom of Naples. Among the San Severinos, the one who had the special love for the city was Roberto, who became Prince of Salerno in 1463, and his son Antonello. The dream of both princes was to make Diano an important political, cultural and spiritual center.
Che cosa resta di questo passato così carico di
What
storia?
remains today of this past so rich in history? In what places or details are still visible the traces of the magnificent prince's dream? Undoubtedly, in the ancient Angevin castle that in 1497 held out for 3 months during the siege of the King of Naples, Federico I. Or in the Seggio, the fine colonnade that since the 15th century hosted the meetings of the citizens' representatives. Or even in the impressive obelisk erected in the 19th century in honor of the patron Saint Corno, made by the sculptor Saverio Trotta.
A segnare il carattere
But
della città
over
nel
time,
tempo
the distinguishing
è stata la
element of the
presenza
city
di numerose
was the
chiese
presence
e
of many
conventi che hanno fatto
churches and
dell'antica
convents,
Diano un importante centro
which
spirituale,
made Diano
conosciuto già
an
da
important
secoli
spiritual
come
center,
la città delle 13 chiese.
known since centuries before as the city of the 13 churches.
C'è un luogo a Teggiano
There is
che
a place
racchiude
that
in sé tutta la
embodies the
storia
whole
religiosa
religious
della
history of
città, la
Teggiano,
chiesa di Santa Maria
the
Maggiore,
Church of Santa
cattedrale
Maria
della diocesi di
Maggiore.
Teggiano e Policastro.
That's the cathedral of the Diocese of Teggiano and Policastro. Every age has added new elements to the original layout. The Baroque left traces of fantasy and whim, contemporaneity, and a sharp and creative disquietude. In the 13th century, the master mason Melchiorre de Montalbano scatters around southern Italy his creations full of fantasy. This magnificent pulpit was made in 1271. Three virtues hold up the 15th century tomb built for Stasio de Herstachio, sleeping on the sarcophagus lid with his dog sitting at his feet. To hold the remains of his son Enrico, who died young in Jerusalem in 1336, Tommaso San Severino asked Tino da Camerino, a sculptor from Siena, to build this tomb. Very moving is the small sculptural group above the sarcophagus, representing a sorrow that is deep and dignified at the same time. A chapel houses the relics of Saint Conno. In a painting dating back to the 18th century, the patron saint of Teggiano is also depicted while he invokes on the city the protection of the Virgin Mary. While the church of Santa Maria Maggiore bears overlap of ages and styles, the church of San Martino has pure Renaissance design. The layout, not much altered by restorations, still speaks a language that sounds classical and original at the same time. The little medieval church of Sant'Antonio Abate, instead, has a simple shape, absolutely beautiful as the doorway, decorated by Nicola de Celsia. Even impressive are the ancient frescoes, only recently revealed. The ancient church of St. Andrea, full of Baroque additions, preserves two remarkable paintings. A late 15th century triptych of Pavanino da Palermo, reminding the old Sienese master's style, A Holy Mother Between Saints, by the master Andrea Sabatini from Salerno, full of the evolutions tested not long before by Pietro Perugino and his apprentices. But the most fascinating and hidden heart of the town of the 13 churches is perhaps in this crypt, dedicated to Santa Venera, beneath the presbytery of the Church of San Michele Arcangelo. Clumsy columns, reused capitals, and the magnificent medieval frescoes, absolutely rich in colors.
La città sognata non doveva
The
essere
dreamed
solo
city
bella, ma
had
anche
to be
ricca di
not
idee.
only beautiful, but also full of ideas and culture. That's why the lords of Diano wanted male and female religious orders to settle in the city, promoting the rise of convents and monasteries. The love for arts and culture of Augustinian monks is still visible in the Church of San Agostino. This is an apparition of the Virgin to Saint Cajetan of Tiene by Feliciano Mangieri. In this 17th century martyrdom of Saint Catherine of Alexandria, the devotion is mixed together with the human vanity of the client, Fabio de Lucia, portrayed in the scene. The saints beloved by Celestine monks surround the scene of the Annunciation in the altarpiece of the Church of Annunziata. A colonnade separates the nave from the lateral aisle, where a small door opens into a little chapel, bearing traces of frescoes. In the Church of San Benedetto, stuccos and frescoes preserve the memory of Benedictine nuns who held the monastery since the 15th century. The Church of San Francesco was part of one of the earliest settlements of the conventual friars in this area. The wooden ceiling, painted in gouache, dates back to the 18th century, and it towers above a nave overloaded by Baroque elements. But the Franciscan identity is strongly reaffirmed by the frescoes of the great saints in the order, covering even older murals. In the apse, the beautiful wooden choir reminds one of the ways and rhythms of the conventual life.
Ma il convento della Santissima
But the
Pietà,
place where the presence of the religious orders in the city is more strongly linked to the policies of San Severino family is the convent of Santissima Pietà.
dapprima monastero femminile benedettino.
At first it was a Benedictine nunnery, but at the end of the 15th century, Prince Antonello entrusted it to the observant Franciscans. Inside, we find the so-called Mourning of the Dead Body of Jesus, a sculptural group made by Giovanni da Nola in the early 16th century, 6 wooden statues of poignant beauty. Around the body of dead Christ, just taken down from the cross, stand 5 others, life-size figures, the sorrow of the Holy Mother and the pain of Mary Magdalene and St. John are counterpointed by the demeanor of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, in which someone has seen the representation of Prince Antonello Sanseverino and his son Roberto II. In the old refectory, the great fresco depicting the Road to Calvary, made in 1476, seems to be full of political and allegorical meanings, maybe related to the history of Prince Antonello.
La storia religiosa di Teggiano è anche storia di
The
popolo.
religious history of Teggiano is also history of popular devotion, made up of rituals and traditions that the community has preserved over the centuries. Next to monumental churches, some small chapels still testify ancient worships. The chapel of San Nicola dei Greci, almost touching in its sobriety, was founded by Basilian monks to get away from the iconoclastic campaign by Byzantine emperors. The original layout of the Chapel of Santa Barbara appears fully altered today, but as its name testifies, it had a deep bond with Greek Catholic tradition. The remarkable stone doorway of the small church of Santa Maria della Misericordia, adorned with plants and animals carved in bas relief, shows how much beauty can hide even in minor details. The religious spirit, which has marked the history of this place, is summarized in the Diocesan Museum, housed in the old Angevin Church of San Pietro. A precious collection of liturgical objects is preserved in the room once used as a vestry. Many artworks are on display in the large main room. Two medieval sepulchres, one where Archdeacon Guglielmo Rossi was buried in the early 16th century, The other, made in 1401, was the tomb of the warrior Bartolomeo Francon. Holy Mother and Baby Jesus. The frescoes once preserved in the crypt of Santa Venera, a crucifixion, a blessing saint with Saint Anthony the Abbot. The impressive late 14th century fresco named the Holy Mother of Milk, ascribed to the so-called Master of Giovanni Barel, an artist deeply influenced by Giotto. This is Teggiano. This is the city of the 13 churches. Moving along these streets, letting yourself be fascinated by the past, you feel that the dream of the princess is still alive deep in the soul of this place. You can still read of that dream in the design of the urban fabric. You can see it in the harmony of the monuments. You can admire it in the beauty of the artistic heritage. And today, as then, the dream city, the city of princes, is always ready to welcome those who desire to discover it.